We're going to open our agenda for our regular meeting. Call to order the regular meeting, 7:13 p.m., October 16th, 2019, at 7:13 p.m. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to discuss an act on the election of officers for the EDC Board of Directors as required by the EDC Restated Certificate of Formation, Article 10, Board of Directors, including but limited to a president, vice president, and secretary. At this time, are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Blaine.
Should take a
He
motion
has,
in a second to discuss the item.
There you go.
what?
Will there be a motion to talk, to have a discussion?
Oh, I move to discuss and act on the election of officers.
Second.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. I would like to nominate Blaine. He has experience with working with boards for president.
Anyone else? Any other nominations for president?
I can second that.
Okay.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, baby, right here.
Okay, you get to move over.
Yeah, now I get
Well,
to go move over to actually.
let's finish that item
Yeah,
first, because we
let's
still have a
actually
vice
take vote on
president.
it.
But then I can't,
We got to vote though, right? We got to vote.
And you're gonna have to vote.
But we can do it all as one, or you
Oh,
can do it
okay.
individually.
maybe not, I don't know. All right. Now we're going to vice president. Any nominations? Do I need to have a motion?
No.
We've already opened up the
Yeah.
motions. Okay. Vice president?
Do you want it?
No.
No?
No.
Well,
May I make a nomination?
I would nominate Ron Lane for vice president.
I can second that, maybe?
No, you're the presiding officer.
No, I
Oh,
can't.
second.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So now we're left with secretary.
Secretary?
Will you stay on?
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay. There has been a nomination for myself as secretary.
Yeah,
Do I
so,
hear a second?
so if we could get Mrs. Seitz to amend her motion with that slate of candidates, and then Matthew, Mr. McCrossan, if you could second that, and then we can have a full vote, and then that item will be done.
No.
Okay. I move that we elect, can I say elect? Okay, elect Blaine as our president, Ron as our vice president, and Kathy as our secretary.
Oh, I'm sorry. Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
So
We're going to move positions now.
Now do I officially move positions?
Yes.
All right. Fun.
And I'll just move over one, and you can put his over.
Okay.
Cheers.
We're gonna switch.
All right. Thank you all very much for the vote of confidence. Definitely going to go buy the idiot's book to Robert's Rules. I know enough about them. Yeah, I know enough about them to be dangerous. And please, Rick, feel free to jump in at any time whenever I step over those rules a little bit. But it looks like we have a short agenda, so hopefully I can't mess this up too bad. So I'm going to guess for the public hearing, we're going to have a motion to open the public hearing.
No,
Does it
President,
just
you,
automatically go
yeah,
in?
the chair, or the president can open that public hearing.
Okay.
And can close the public hearing without any action from the rest of the board. When you do open a public hearing, please state the time that you're opening it.
Okay.
Then, of course, you'll have been given comment forms if people have signed up for that. And then if there are none, then you'll close the meeting and just state the time that you're closing the public hearing.
Okay. I'm going to assume at this point, I haven't seen the sign-up sheet, but I would assume we don't have anybody signed up for any
No, sir.
of the public hearings. Okay. So at 7:17, I'm going to open up the public hearing on a proposal for the EDC to fund the construction of a spray park, splash pad at the Helotes Fitness Park and disc golf course located at 10483 Paragon Road. The proposal constitutes an economic development project as defined by Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 505, Type B corporations. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that public hearing. All right. Now, also at 7:17, I'm going to open up a public hearing on a proposal for the EDC to fund the construction of new sidewalks along Riggs Road from Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church, OLG, to FM 1560 and along Old FM 1560 from FM 1560 to Helotes City Hall. The proposal constitutes an economic development project as defined by local Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 505, Type B corporations. So without any, I will go ahead and close that public hearing as well. Okay. We're going to now move on to our open session. Citizens to be heard. Do we have anybody signed up?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda items number 6 through 9. Just to kind of give everybody background on consent agenda items, all consent agenda items listed below are considered routine by EDC staff and are intended to be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a director requests it, in which event the item will be removed from consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there any request to remove any of the items from the consent agenda from any of the directors?
Yes, Mr. President, I request that number 8 and number 9 be moved to individual consideration.
Okay, at the request of Director, sorry, I'm going to get.
McCrossin.
McCrossin, I'm going to get good with names. We're going to remove 8 and 9 from the consent agenda and move them down to the items for individual consideration, which will leave items 6 and 7 on the consent agenda. Is there any other request to move any of the consent agenda items? Okay. Without there being any other items to be moved, I need a motion to approve items 6 and 7 on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve items 6 and 7 on the consent agenda items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those approve and disapproval say nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes. All right, so now that we've dropped 8 and 9 down into items of individual consideration, we'll start with number 8 on our items for individual consideration. Okay, so a little help here, staff. On items for individual consideration, are we just going to open each one of those up separately?
Yes, sir.
And then I guess obviously we'll have a vote on them separately. So let's go ahead and, do we have to have a motion to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So I need a motion to discuss item number 8, approval of a proposal for the EDC to fund the construction of a spray park splash pad at Helotes Fitness Park and disc golf course located at 10483 Paragon Road to be completed jointly with the city of Helotes, whereby the EDC will provide funding and the city of Helotes will provide the project planning, design, engineering, estimating, and management. Okay, so do I have a motion for discussion?
I have I motion for a discussion on item 8 as you stated.
I guess we need a second on that.
Yes, sir.
So do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so the item, do we have to vote now for the actual discussion? No, once you have it, then we can go into discussion. So going by Mr. Mayor's rules, he who motioned it gets to speak first.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just wanted to bring this back up because for me, as a board member, when I got to see the proposal within a week and then it came on the agenda, for me, that just wasn't enough time. And, you know, looking at it, something just didn't seem right. And so I asked a few more questions. I get the idea. I appreciate the mayor's presentation, but At that meeting, with everything going on, it didn't present itself that clearly to me until I asked staff for some help on the budget. We're being asked with items specifically right now, number 8, to expend money that I don't think we have enough reserve for. If we actually look at what we're going to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, by the end of this fiscal year, we're only going to have, if recession doesn't take, if tax revenue keeps up, about $255,000 right now that's unspoken for. And item number 8 alone, I believe, was estimated at $275,000 to $300,000. And within last month, we were asked after seeing that, at least I was, after seeing the agenda within a week, to look at all that information and to look at that marketing packet. And I'm a marketer, and I'll tell you one thing they didn't present in that marketing collateral was there's a big difference between 2-inch and 4-inch pipes and recycling. They don't also address the optics of, it's a hot 95-degree day, possibly humidity, like we had a lot of humidity like this year, and I have a 6 and 8-year-old. I'm a single dad. They have no mom, and I'm going to get them ready and take them down to a splash pad, fight for traffic, and then I show up first time, and that, because the pH is off, it's shut down for 45 minutes. Or because we don't have fence in that area, deer have come across, or any other animals, and have defecated on that. There's state rules that in the last month I've been able to look up and discuss that they're to me, right now, with this and the potential hazards of, hey, let's, fund this project, who's going to clean it? Who's going to be on tap to receive the phone calls? Who's going to be on tap to say, no, it's working properly, don't worry, very extremely upset parents who just, got your young kids around to come out here, in about 45 minutes, the system's going to turn on. So there's a whole bunch of things that I just don't, and after a year serving with you and some of the things that sidebar discussions we've had, I just don't think we've had enough time to look at, and it might be nitpicky, but I don't think we've had enough time to go through the due diligence of EDC is going to cut a check, our name effectively is going to be tied with the project, and then what are the second and third order effects of our decision. Knowing that potentially we're coming into recession, and I tried to work it out on an Excel sheet to look several years before in terms of tax revenues, between what most people believe December 2008 is the start of the recession that we went through, and it lasts, depending who you talk to, a year and a half or so. See if there's any correlation between recession and tax revenue. And after discussion with staff, hard to say because we have to handicap it because of the development. So are we fully developed? If we get hit with a recession, is that $255,000 going to be there next October? Or are we going to be in the red? And that's just one part of the pie. Don't get me wrong, I'd like it. I'd like a different option other than the neighborhood pool. The kids would enjoy it. Been to splash pads before. But looking at what we did with the work plan, and the fact that we put a lot of time and effort into it, and we did nitpick, and we moved A up to B, we switched some things around, and we spent, if I recall correctly, at least one meeting on the finer details in that thing. I just don't think something like this in the first fiscal quarter at the end of the year going into the cold season is something that, and I did not vote for it on those points. And I want to draw that out, that I don't think we have the money for it. I think as we have already worked on and council's already approved on the work plan, funds are allocated, and if we go ahead with these things, if we go ahead with number 8, we can wipe out, effectively we'll be in the red in terms of what we owe. And, if we go with number 8 and 9, that's 2 years, hopefully, that we have to pay, that we'll get back those funds. And that's at least 1 year on item number 9 without straying too far into number 8, that if we get a big deal, do we have the money to pay for it? Somebody wants to take land and says, hey, we need an incentive to come in, and, you know, it's a recessionary period, but we like the fact that you have a lower tax rate than San Antonio. Can we afford to offer them X, Y, and Z? And I personally, I mean, maybe if we had 500K in the bank and we outlaid for a year, I think that's recoverable. But we're looking at a big ask, and we already have debt service to former projects. And on top of that, number 8, the second point I wanted to make, I wasn't here for the bridge. Came in halfway with the signing, but we're turning our money over to project planning, design, engineering, estimating, and management. I don't know, you know, the historical logistics of that, but we're getting ready to cut a check, or if it gets voted and approved, we're cutting a check, and we have no say. And honestly, that's not something I had time to go through all the meeting minutes and look at any records available online to see what was approved by EDC, and were there any overages, were there any issues? Because there again, you know, our name's going to be tied to that as a corporation, a municipally owned corporation that cut a check for a project that was presented by council. So those are my 2 points on 8, and I'm done. Thank you.
Second.
May I clarify some items? Chair?
Sure.
Okay, just for clarification, the 250,000 is the net position year over year. So the city budgeted, or excuse me, the EDC budgeted 1.49, basically $1.5 million in revenue, and we are spending $1.24 million in revenue. So the $255,952, that's just year over year. Basically, we budgeted to not spend $255,000 out of our revenue. The fund balance for the EDC is $950,000 as of this last audit. So the fund balance is close to $1 million for the EDC. When you add the $256,000, you're looking at closer to $1.3 million ending fund balance at the end of this fiscal year that was recently adopted. So I just want to clarify that the fund balance for the EDC is not $250,000. It's right now $1 million, approximately $1 million.
1.2.
The other thing that I did want to bring up is procedurally here, the last time procedurally, the EDC at the September meeting under items number 11 and 12 essentially agreed to both projects, and under the splash pad that y'all would fund up to $300,000 for the project. So any additional money above that $300,000, if there was any, that would have to come back before the board of directors for approval, and then would have to go to city council for approval as well, since it's above the $300,000. And the same would go for the project, the sidewalk project. The last, you had mentioned something that I was going to comment on. It escapes me, but those are the two big items. So the fund balance is closer to $1 million. The project was essentially approved for an amount not to exceed $300,000. If it did exceed that, it would have to. Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about. And the city is not asking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the city is not asking for the EDC to cover maintenance and operations expenses or maintenance on the project once the project is complete. The city is asking for the funding for the project, but not maintenance, not being the one who gets called when there is some problem with the splash pad. So that would all be handled by the city, and that's very similar to the projects that the EDC has funded in the past, the Old Town improvements, the bridge, those types of things. All of the maintenance after it's constructed, it falls on the city of Helotes. It no longer falls on the EDC. Unless, of course, the EDC is generous and decides that it wants to give us money to do, to do maintenance of those projects. So those are my three comments.
Can I respond to that?
Well,
To say something now.
who seconded?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll go back through, we'll go to second, we'll just come back around to you since everybody's
Okay.
gonna have
No, I didn't
a
say
time to
it.
talk.
Second.
Yeah, it's either one of y'all two. I don't know who
I
beat
guess
who.
you said
Can I make comment about that or ask a question
Go
about
ahead.
it?
Sure, yeah, more questions the better.
Because I'm not familiar with the project as whole, as discussed already, but I'm just curious as far as the splash pads in the park, what kind of survey or something has been done on that projection as far as the utilization? So based on cost, I mean, I just asked because I've seen in some communities where they've done this, where, you know, they put in a splash pad and they put in, put in a mushroom, you know, and the kids go out there and then it's a, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 year agenda. And then after that is things either start to deteriorate or if at times it's broke and then they don't go, before you know it, all of a sudden the projected number of people that were gonna utilize it is all of a sudden down, you know, from 100% now, it's, you know, 50% of the people that would utilize it are no longer utilizing it for various reasons. So, I don't know, I guess I'm just not familiar with what the cost analysis of that is based on a projection of people that are gonna use it. You know, how much value is there?
I know Mayor Schoolcraft went through this with a finite pen when he came to budgeting. And I know we can recoup the money for it within 4 to 6 months is what or sooner, with tax,
And
Without any expenditures.
without any expenditure.
I mean, truthfully, the
true.
revenue we generate is anticipated close to 1.4, 1.5 million.
Right.
But our overall expenditures for the year is 1.2. So the net, we're at what, 255,000?
yeah, I think the point was the amount of revenue that the EDC is generating
Correct.
monthly, and the expenditures that are included in the budget, most likely, as they never have in the past, won't be fully expended. So that 255,000 is likely a low number. The net revenues over expenditures would likely be much higher than that, meaning that we were further in the black. We've never spent 100% of the budget in any given year. So I think that's where the rationale was coming from as to what the monthly revenue that the EDC is currently getting, coupled with the fact that, you know, we really have never spent all of the money that we have budgeted year over year.
Okay. I do agree with some of the points you've made, because I didn't think about the deer coming in. I didn't think about other things. But again, that's part of the planning, the design, the engineering.
Yeah, the city is gonna be responsible for, like I said, the maintenance and operations, and part of the operations is there's gonna have to be testing of the facilities. Those things are required by the state, and so the city will have to comply with those items, and that'll be handled through our Public Works Department.
Okay. Water testing and all that, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Okay.
Well, now, I feel that the investment is well worth the return. I've seen these water parks, and they are well received. And it wouldn't be just our community, it would be people coming in, just like they're doing to use the exercise park now. And then when they come use the water park, then of course they're gonna they're gonna get gas at our stations, they're going to eat at our restaurants, shop in our shops, and literally get to know Helotes and enjoy it more. I see where it would be a great return, quite frankly. And particularly since it would be maintained by the city according to state regulations.
I just have a couple of questions because I'm catching up on the issue here. On the expenditures of what is budgeted, what is the main source of what do we spend the most money on per year? Just trying to,
Debt service.
we're not trying to
Yeah,
understand. is-
debt service would
Debt
be the.
service, okay.
Yeah, so debt service, if you look at, what tab is it? 7. So currently, we're spending $329,000 on debt service.
Okay. And whenever we put together the budget for the expenditures, is there ever earmarks or set-asides for these special projects like these? Do you have almost like a general fund that says,
These projects are either included in the regular budget process.
Okay.
So they're included as a part of that budget presentation, or they are throughout the year, special projects that come up
Okay.
that are then have to go before a public hearing and have to be discussed and approved by the board of directors and the city council. The other thing I do want to mention is this first went to city council before it went to the board of directors, and the mayor explained last time why that process was done. It was to make sure that city council wanted to do the project, since it is city property before it went to the EDC, and the city council did approve that project. So with regard to if there's community support for it, I know that there's community support for some sort of water facility. We get those calls quite a bit at City Hall, but that may address some of your concerns. The elected officials have said that we definitely want to do this project. And so, but yeah, they can either come up through the budget process or they can be earmarked throughout the year, so long as the EDC and City Council approve them.
okay. And I guess on the timing of it, is there a certain timing that the city's trying to get this project online? Again, I'm just thinking about, we are going into the winter months, but are we trying to get this online by next summer if it gets approved?
I would have to defer to the mayor on that. I mean, I think the time frame is certainly within the year, but I don't know exactly what the exact time frame is.
Sure. Come on up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments and questions. As went over this last month, I had looked at this as a potential project for a while, and then just in knowing some of the other mayors of the suburban cities, Universal City just finished a splash park or a splash pad. And talking to their mayor, it's just one of the most outstanding things that they've done in one of their parks, and has been well received. So I started doing a little research on this and talked to 3 major splash park providers, and got some basic information. And there are multiple ways to build them. The most expensive but the most productive way is a recirculation system where you're reusing the water. And it goes through filters, chlorinators, those kinds of things. And then it's back out of the spray heads. And what we're looking at basically are low maintenance features on the splash pad. There'll be ground sprays, which are very popular with smaller children. It's that the water comes out right at the surface of the concrete, and different sprays allows them to run through it and enjoy it. And then all the way up through adolescent children with the spray cannons, and then the dumping buckets and things like that. There won't be any fiberglass features. There'll be some custom features. We're thinking about a windmill with a dumping bucket to where adults and older kids and smaller kids can get under the bucket and let it drop on them. We're looking at about a 12 to 1,500 square foot pad with 12 to 18 features. Those features are all interchangeable. I happened to be at a Texas Municipal League conference downtown last week and talked to each of the providers that I had spoken to on the phone and through email, and they're all going to be working with us. And what we're going to be doing is a design build, and they're all very well known. providers and designers, and they do turnkey jobs, and they do it through the buying cooperatives that we belong to. But we'll just look at them, much like we did the police and fire station. Whoever comes up with the best design for the best price is probably who we'll go with. As far as some of Matthew's concerns, we are going to provide a fence around there to keep dogs off of it. I'm not too worried about deer. I haven't seen deer around here for many years, although they used to be very prevalent. But the water purification or the water quality, that's going to be handled by our Public Works Department, and it's just a matter of having actually all of our Public Works employees certified on testing the quality of the water, and the rest of it's pretty simple to do. As far as defecation, that could be little kids doing things
Yeah.
as well as deer, but it'll be checked daily. And the way this works is it's all set on timers, as I understand it. You'll have a time where the water will be available for use, and the park will be open, and the time that the water will be shut off. During those operational hours, each feature will have a button where someone wanting to use that feature can hit that button, and we'll have it timed anywhere from 30-second usage all the way up to 3, 4, 5 minutes or longer. So it's all very well controlled, and it just seemed like a great idea on my mind to bring more people to the park. And the park's being more and more used. I don't know if you've been over there and used the fitness equipment and the fitness trail, but I get people stopping me and just telling me how much they enjoy the park. So this is just another way to have something for the people to enjoy.
Thank you.
Did I address your?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I just need a little bit of more background on it and understand what the scope and breadth.
Yeah, and
I mean,
as far as revenue, I went over last month, just looking at the chart of revenue this past fiscal year. The EDC's taking in sales tax revenue of, I believe the average was around $130,000 a month revenue coming in, and that's where I had presented the idea of with that gross number, he could be paid for in basically less than 4 months. Of course, with the other debt and everything that you're looking at, it'd take a little longer than that, but it certainly shouldn't overtax the EDC any more than the pedestrian bridge did.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. All right, Matthew, we're going to come back around to you so you can
Okay,
give
yeah.
more commentary.
So, because after what you said, Rick, it sounds like I'm reading this incorrectly. So at the end of 2020, September, October, what does the 255 mean? That's our budget, what we expect, we anticipate based on,
So if you, let me just drink, this is the last audit that was conducted of the EDC, and so I want to just clarify that at the end of 2017, you can see that the EDC had a fund balance of $807,000. At the end of 2018, which would have been September 30th of 2018, and the following day being the beginning of this last fiscal year that just ended, our fund balance was $950,000, so a little under $1 million. At the end of this fiscal year, I'm assuming that fund balance is going to be higher than $1 million. That $255,000 is, so we budgeted a certain amount of revenue for this next fiscal year, and we budgeted a certain expenditure, total expenditures for this fiscal year, right? The difference between those two is $255,000 to the positive,
Which would just be
Yeah,
added on
so-
to
which would
reserves.
then just add to the existing fund balance that we have.
okay, because the point I was trying to make is that we have with that fund balance, we anticipate that we can add, what, 255,000 more to it, but the majority of it's already budgeted for and spoken for. So if everything goes to plan, we should have $255,000 added on to whatever's in the fund balance, but the fund balance is spoken for via the budget.
No.
Correct? No?
No,
Then
the
what
fund
am I-
balance is is the unreserved portion of the fund balance. It's our reserve account. So what we budgeted for this fiscal year was based solely on anticipated revenues and expenditures, not touching the fund balance. So if we spend less than we bring in, the total fund balance, the reserve fund goes up by the 255,000.
So the net effect is if we spend items 8 and 9, the 500K-ish, we're still gonna have a fund balance well over 700,000.
You're gonna have, well, you'll probably have it closer still to that $1 million mark, because you're gonna bring in 255,000, plus we're not gonna spend all the whatever it was budgeted this year, 1.24 million, we're not gonna spend all of that. So you'll likely have, a little bit more, but it could, I would say it's probably gonna stay around the $1 million mark. It may go down to 800,000 versus the $1 million that we have in there currently.
Okay, so, and last question, so I can nail the coffin, for me. Somebody comes up and says, hey, we got a great deal, everybody jumps on board, and we need to cut a check for, $375,000, $500,000 for incentives. Is that a possibility? After, let's say everybody's on board, city council, we get a hotel, right? We get that
Well,
golden goose?
You're talking about whether the EDC would be able to cut a check for $375,000 or
To
$400,000.
incentivize something, yeah. Which basically is telling you what my litmus for some sort of incentive,
Yeah, I mean,
incentivizing.
even if you had $750,000 left and you cut a check for $400,000, you're still gonna have $350,000 in the fund balance.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
it's
answered all my
usually better
questions.
to have a lot more money in the fund balance.
It's a policy decision.
When we have 900,000 in between debt service and a 380 agreement, 600,000.
Yeah. Well, I'm still here, and so I'm telling you that you probably have about 400,000.
Yes.
That is a policy decision as to how much money you want to have in the fund balance. It doesn't have to be $1 million, it could be $2 million, it could be 100,000. It depends on how much you want to spend every year.
And when are those decisions made, Rick, as far as us deciding how much we want to keep in reserves?
That typically will occur during the budget process. So, to my knowledge, the EDC has never had a formal discussion as to how much you were gonna have in the fund balance, okay? The general rule of thumb is that, and this is for cities, it doesn't apply to EDCs, is that you have 2 to 3 months of reserves in your fund balance. Well, the EDC is a little bit different because, yes, you have expenditures, but you don't have nearly as many expenditures as the city does, nor do you have the personnel obligations that the city does. So it's a little bit of a different animal.
Right.
When we develop this, we don't spend all of this for expenditures. There's things that we moved around, and we can move around. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when it says 545,000, that's not set in stone.
Yeah, are you talking about?
On our contractual services, like debt service is under that.
Yeah, debt services, the only thing that's gonna be set in stone on these typically is gonna be your personnel costs, which is included under 510, 5101 through 5113.
Right.
And definitely set in stone is your debt service.
Right. Everything else,
The other
Doesn't
thing, excuse me,
always
is
come
the 380 agreement reimbursements that's set in stone. Those are prior economic development agreements that y'all entered into.
Yeah.
That we have to rebate sales tax back to them. So of that, you're looking about 5, 8, 9, about $1 million. Everything else is squishy. You can move it around.
right. Okay. One more thing.
If you like that term, squishy.
I like squishy, that works for me. See, gateway signage is already in here, so that's not coming out anymore. I mean, that's already been approved and,
That dollar amount is included in the
right.
budget, yes, ma'am.
So it's not like we're not gonna have to pay that again. So it's already budgeted into our,
Yes,
new
assuming that we
budget.
stay within that budget, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Okay, do we have any further discussion? All right, with that, I'm going to close the.
Can I make one additional comment? I typically don't do this, but just to your point about the $300,000 or $400,000, the city and the EDC has never, they certainly can, but typically the way those 380 agreements have been structured is that they're paid out over time. They're not paid out all in one lump sum. So that's also in the back of my mind, that the city and EDC have never provided a developer
Right.
hundreds of $1,000s in upfront costs. It's always been recouped over time. And so you can, but we haven't done it yet. So-
Right. That's likely, it's just like any other construction project. The front-end costs are small compared to the back-end, the actual hard construction costs is where a lot of the money's gonna get spent. The engineering and estimating part of it is usually a fraction of what the construction cost is. So it'll be a while before the money actually comes out.
right.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna close the discussion on number 8, and I'm gonna, does anybody have a motion regarding that item?
I move that we fund the construction of a spray park splash pad at the Helotes Fitness Park and Disc Golf Course on Paragon Road.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Mitchell for approval of item number 8 as written. Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. I will now put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Ayes have it, motion passes. So I think we're gonna move on to number 9 for individual consideration, and I'm gonna go ahead and entertain, well, actually, we already had the motion of the Director McCroskey is the one that moved it from consent to individual, so I guess I'd just open it up for discussion.
You would need, actually, sir, he moved it down.
Okay,
So you would still need a motion and
Open
a
it.
second to approve the project.
okay. Do I need to open it, since it's in individual consideration, do I need to open it up for discussion?
Yes, sir.
first? Okay. So I need a motion to open up item number 9, approval of proposal for the EDC to fund the construction of new sidewalks along Riggs Road from Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church to FM 1560, and along Old FM 1516 from FM 1560 to Helotes City Hall to be completed jointly with the City of Helotes, whereby the EDC will provide the funding, and the City of Helotes will provide the project planning, design, engineering, estimating, and management. So do I have a motion for discussion?
I move to discuss the proposal of the new sidewalks.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so you're
I know, I'm ready.
ready.
I agree we need sidewalks. I totally agree. But can we wait a little bit to see what the splash pad's gonna cost and the planning and engineering and all that? And then when we get a real timeline on that, then we incorporate the sidewalks. I'd like to wait because we have the bridge, we have this, we have the signage. Now we're going into a new area with a splash pad, and that's pretty big. And then I would like to wait a little bit just to see how all that's gonna fall out before we begin our sidewalks, which I agree is the next thing we need to work on. Just my opinion.
How many feet is the proposed sidewalk area?
Okay, so we have the total area of the sidewalk as proposed to be 28,000 square feet, with approximately 20,700 square feet for Riggs Road and 7,200 square feet for Old FM 1560. So essentially where you're going from is Our Lady of Guadalupe Church to, and this is on one side of the road, to FM 1560, across FM 1560, and from and all along Old FM 1560 to City Hall, if that makes sense. There is no sidewalk on either side of Riggs Road past Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, and there is no sidewalk on Old FM 1560. And so the proposal on Old FM 1560 would be to go along the side where City Hall fronts. I think there's still some discussion as to what side of Riggs Road the sidewalk would be placed from Our Lady of Guadalupe to FM 1560. There also, I will bring up, there would need to be coordination with TxDOT because TxDOT's widening that road, or widening FM 1560, and so that would have to take place. And we also submitted, the city did submit a grant application for safe routes to schools for not only this project, but a number of other sidewalks throughout the city So the idea behind this project, in discussing this with the mayor, was this would be a placeholder in lieu of us not receiving the grant funds through Safe Routes to Schools and through TxDOT. So if the city did receive those funds, then the EDC would not need to do this project. But if the city did not receive those funds through TxDOT, then we would proceed with this project.
So we probably want to hold off till we know whether or not what the city's going to do.
Well, we for sure are going, and this was presented at the last EDC meeting, we would for sure hold off on anything until after December, because the Safe Routes to Schools project is going to be decided who gets what funding in December of this year, so December of 2019. But it's TxDOT. It could be January, it could be February. I mean, we don't know for sure. So we would not be proceeding with anything, to my knowledge, until after that funding mechanism was exhausted.
So this could be postponed for now.
I'll defer to the mayor on that. I mean, this is his item, so I mean, I'm assuming.
Please. Please, yeah.
Yeah, again, like Rick said, and I explained last time, we have a Safe Routes to School grant project through TxDOT that we have asked for quite a bit of money for not only this particular stretch of sidewalk, but sidewalks on Braun and Gome roads and a few other areas. And this is kind of a project in case we do not get any of that funding. And the idea was to present it to the EDC as a funding project before we would proceed with doing any kind of real study or design on it, just to see if the will was there to fund it. And it wouldn't be done until next year, and it would easily work with the spray park. So it's just a matter of, are you willing to do it? And we can do it. And if that's the case, then we can proceed with at least some of the planning. The grant award is supposed to be sometime in December, if it's done in a timely fashion and on schedule. And so this wouldn't even be looked at to be started until sometime, at least probably the second or third quarter of next year if we decide to do it. Okay? Any questions?
Width of the sidewalk?
Pardon me?
How wide is it?
We're planning on 6 foot
6 foot.
wide. I forget the linear footage, but like Rick said, it's a total of about 28,000 square feet. And we had low bid estimates of about $4.50 a square foot, depending upon how we do it, as high as $6, $7, $8 a square foot. So we put a not to exceed number in there, as I recall last month, and that's what we would stick by.
Okay.
But we do see a lot of people walking and
Yes.
and running along Riggs Road, and it's always been a safety issue. We've had streetlights there for years, but people still try and stay on that small shoulder, and we're just trying to provide a way. Ultimately, when 1560 is widened, starting in 2022, hopefully, if the bid letting is done by TxDOT, it'll be widened from Riggs Road to 471, and this will just help connect Old Town to the sidewalks on the sides of the new widened 1560. And also between here and 1560, A lot of people in the exercise class at the little retail center are running up and down on that rough terrain. And it's just to provide them a safe surface to also exercise and walk on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further discussion?
Well, with this understanding that basically we're going to be a contingency plan if the Safe Sidewalk, that program doesn't come through. And also the fact that it's going to not even be started until next year. I do know that there is a real need for that sidewalk. Now, I really feel strongly that it should be on the west side and connect because most people are coming either from the subdivisions, Iron Horse, Ranch Acres, or even from the park. And using the west side because there's so many more trees and they're older trees, and so there's shade there all day long. And I can see where they, rather than wanting to come to the city hall and cross that crazy 1560, they would use the sidewalk instead to go to the park and the other subdivisions. But I feel strongly that we should definitely pursue these sidewalks. And I'll be glad to make a motion.
Here's my input on it. So sidewalks are great. A lot of municipalities are just catching up with the whole, the need for sidewalks. City of San Antonio bonds millions and millions of dollars every 5 years for sidewalk projects. I do believe the west side is good. Sidewalks are tricky when you don't have curb, I will say that, just because you don't have a nice hard ledge to put that sidewalk up against, and so you're trying to put it down in an area that the street's gonna drain over the top, so there needs to put a lot of thought put into how that sidewalk is done to make sure it's taken in that aspect on the drainage side. But I do think it's needed. I mean, I've seen people get almost hit there plenty of times because it is a nice place for you to go for a jog. So what is the total budget that we're looking at for this project? And is this another max out one that would?
Yeah, it was a max
out?
of 175,000. Okay.
I figure I estimated 150.
You're pretty close.
Pretty close.
Okay. That's all the discussion I have on it. Pricing wise, I think it is about right what I've seen on sidewalk pricing. It could become more just because there could be some drainage aspects that come along with it beyond just the cost of the sidewalk itself. Hopefully TxDOT comes through and recognizes this being a project. On a side note, has there been any thoughts of widening Riggs Road itself? Improving it?
No, sir.
Has that ever been a discussion?
No.
Okay. I'd hate for us to put in a nice sidewalk and then us decide we're gonna widen Riggs Road and pull out a sidewalk, 3 years down the road.
Yeah, nothing in the thoroughfare plan or in city council discussions or anything have we talked about widening Riggs Road.
Okay. All right, that's all the discussion I have on it. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, with that, then we'll make I will entertain a motion on item number 9.
I'll make a motion to move, to approve on this.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Lane for approval of item number 9. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Ayes have it, motion passes. All right, moving on to the rest, items of individual discussion or consideration. And these are particular items, and Rick, I'm gonna look to you on this. Are these items that are just in an individual consideration because they've been here before?
Yeah, so this particular item has been before the EDC before. It was approved as a part of the budget process for $5,400. It was sent to council. At council discussion, council wants to be compensated now for the executive director services. And you can see in the backup documentation, there's financials showing that on top of what was previously discussed with the city treasurer, and that is the chart, the Excel spreadsheet for the 5,600. On top of that, they are requesting the 14,768.75, or all told, altogether 15,000, including the $5,600.
Okay.
So, the agreement simply amends the 5,400 to 15,000, and it did need to come back to the board because it was amended after y'all approved it.
Okay. All right, so we have item number 10, discussion of action on a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Helotes Economic Development Corp. Approving a revised agreement for management services between the City of Helotes and the EDC, authorizing the Executive Director to take all necessary steps to implement the provisions of this resolution, incorporating recitals, providing for severability, and adopting an effective date. Do I have a motion to open for discussion?
Motion to discuss as stated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Director McCoskin, you're up first.
No, I've reviewed this. No
Okay.
questions.
Any
Or
questions?
comments?
And I have no questions.
Okay. My only commentary is just even at 15,000, I think for the time that city staff is putting in, it's still a really good deal as far as the support that we're getting, knowing what labor costs are nowadays, in the benefit that the corporation's getting out of it. In my opinion, it's well worth the money. So, with that, if we have no further discussion, I'm gonna close the discussion and entertain a motion for,
Motion to approve item 10 as, to agree to item 10.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item number 10. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Ayes have it, motion passes. All right, moving on to item number 11, discussion of and direction on the design costs and installation of gateway monument signage on SH 16 Bandera Road, Hausman Road, and/or FM 1560. And this is brought by staff. Do I have a motion to open for discussion?
Motion to open, or item number 11 for discussion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Yes.
going back to the work plan that was included within your packets, you'll see that under goal number 2, gateway signage, the EDC and City Council agreed that the EDC should pursue gateway signage along state rights-of-way, basically saying, "Welcome to Helotes," or something to that effect. In the past, and I included this in the agenda item request form, so this has gone back and forth between the EDC and the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council as to what these signs should look like. That has been my choice in how we proceed with this project, because everybody has differences of opinion on things, and so I wanted to nail down kind of what this thing would look like and what the cost would be before we then went to TxDOT to see what the options were on Highway 16, both north and south. There were initial discussions about placing this on FM 1560 going towards Shanefield and Hausman Road. Prior discussions before this board were that I think that y'all wanted to focus primarily on Bandera Road to start with, but I don't believe that that was finalized. So, but nonetheless, tonight, we have received 6 different renditions. There are 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different renditions and associated cost estimates for those renditions through Keller. The last rendition came from our own Councilman Holmes. And he, of course, used to be on the EDC, and I think the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before that, he presented, and this was emailed out to y'all, this concept, which was essentially stacked stone of some sort in a monument, angular, and that incorporated the EDC logo without stating EDC, but rather just the windmill with Helotes and says the gateway to the hill country. So we provided this to Keller, and Keller came up with the final rendition that is included within your packets. I can bring it up here. This rendition, I think originally that Councilman Holmes was looking more at a sign material that was resin or, what did you call that, sir? Sandblasted. I think they can make it out of resin or they can make it out of wood. They can do it out of different mediums, but having that look, and that also was included in the email that was sent out to y'all as to other city signs. It's basically kind of like that weathered wood look, but it's not necessarily wood, but it looks like it's been carved wood. The Keller quote that is provided here for this item is $12,350, and that is installed. That's a turnkey price. That does not incorporate the weathered resin sign here. Keller Custom Signs doesn't do that. So we would have to find another manufacturer for that type of sign, if that's something that y'all wish to proceed with. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that that is why y'all received that email from Glenn after the fact. The rest of the signs that were provided from Keller came directly from Keller, based upon the comments that the P&Z, the City Council, and the EDC had provided. So that's where we are. We've placed this item on as direction only, and the reason we did that is because we have 4 new board members, and so we wanted to get direction from y'all prior to bringing this back for any sort of formal action that would then need to go back to the city council to approve the final design and to approve locations. So this by no means is a done project. Well, I'm compartmentalizing this. I'm trying to get the sign design done. Then we're going to approach TxDOT and get the locations that they offer us, and then we would get final approval from the city council on both the placement and the design of the sign, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
We're open for discussion,
yes.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments, reference to signs. The last signage here, you have that proposal on, as far as with the representation of like the EDC on there and everything. I guess I'm kind of traditional, as far as if I'm looking at city signs, so maybe be a little arbitrary about the last proposal where with it saying the gateway to the hill country. I guess for some people I could say, I don't get it. Okay? So on the more traditional side, there's some of the particular writings and with the windmill, the sign design I like, I guess I would just prefer just to say, welcome to Helotes overall, than the gateway to hill country. Fact is, I don't know how much conflict between other little cities and counties around here, and they say, well, no, we're the gateway to hill country, or, I don't know. What makes that specific or significant to the city of Helotes? It's not like,
So the city's logo for a long time the official logo has never incorporated the gateway to the hill country or the gateway to the Texas hill country, as far as my knowledge goes. It's something that the city has used a lot of, not only currently, but in the past, to sort of distinguish the city from
So is it something
Leon
we're-
Valley or
is it something
Chap-
we're trademarking?
It's a tagline.
It's a tagline, and no, it is not trademarked, and it is not copyrighted, and it is not registered.
Cities Magazine.
Yeah, none of it is trademark, registered, or copyrighted. And other cities do use the term the gateway to the hill country.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my point.
Yeah, and none of them have registered or trademarked that either. So it's kind of like whatever city wants to use it is using it.
That's all I had.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, so I'd just like to make the comment that great job on it. It really pops. I liked your rendition better than the other ones. In terms of the body copy, the gateway to the hill country, good point. The only thing I was going to add to that in discussion is removing the first "the," so it's a little bit more active voice. And I guess in terms of yeah, in terms of direction, what I would recommend is that, you know, we see another rendition that has both welcome to, for a graphic designer, I mean, we're talking about like 5 minutes
Right,
on
yeah.
Photoshop, yeah.
I like the other writing versus like the block, or I don't know what they call this writing on here, but
The different font.
I guess kind of, you know, the Old Town Helotes, or, you know, kind of I think that the other writing on there seems more fitting for the city of Helotes. I think that this is recognizable throughout the city and other locations.
The
That's
font,
that's on
the font
website,
that's,
right?
the font that's used here
Yes.
is the font that's incorporated into the actual city logo.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So if you look at,
That's why I said if it was on this sign like that, I think it would just be a little more appealing.
It's too blocky.
Right.
Yeah.
so if you look here, that
Yeah,
city
that's-
of, and
Yeah.
then Helotes, that's the same font.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's nice.
I agree
like
with you
that.
as far as the sign design.
I mean, from a branding perspective, you know, right now you got the windmill all over the place. We got the physical windmill. And then if the water feature comes with a windmill, I mean, we're pretty well down that road in terms.
We've got a windmill.
Right.
That's right. Oh, I love this design. Just love it.
It really pops.
Pardon me, gateway to the hill country, I've seen other,
Councilman, would you mind coming up to the,
I have seen other verbiage referring to Helotes as, Mr. Mayor, help me, what is the other?
Where the hill country
Where the hill country begins, thank you, Stevie. Where the hill country begins. So there's nothing cast in concrete or stone relative to the gateway to the hill country or where the hill country begins, either one. So that was, what I put there was just an idea. I don't know that if you guys vote on it to approve it, if that's how it has to stay, or if there are other options to consider as far as the verbiage is concerned.
I was just wondering, does that mean we need to have a sign on the other side of Bandera this way saying this is where hill country ends?
Somebody will put one up.
Just wondering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my input on it is, so signage is awesome. TxDOT is difficult in finding out where they're gonna allow us to put something like this, especially with the improvements that they're doing to Bandera. And ultimately, where they allow us to put it, or what they allow us to do, will probably affect some of our design parameters as far as sizing goes, maybe even some of the colors. I don't think they get that far into it, but they definitely worry about things within the right-of-way, or if we need to acquire some property outside the right-of-way for it. And depending on how that land lays, it may actually affect some of the features on it. But I do think we could at least have, I don't know how to do it, Rick, as far as like a motion to approve it in concept.
I don't, yeah, you don't need, all I need tonight is direction. So, I
Okay.
mean, if everybody's in general agreement that this last rendition is something that
close.
they want to pursue,
Right.
then I can go back to Keller, I can have them change I'll have them keep the font, but add welcome to. I'll have them change the font to what we have for the logo.
Yes.
With the same thing.
Okay.
And then I'll have another rendition where it gets rid of the word "the" in front and just Gateway to the Hill Country. So I'll bring you back multiple options. But I'm happy at this point that I think all of y'all like this one thing, so we're good.
You're right. We're
We're
getting
making
close, right?
progress.
What is the timetable on actually approaching meeting with TxDOT on this? Because I think, well, I don't know if we're all in agreement. Me personally, I think Bandera Road's where it needs to go. I mean, obviously, that's where majority of the traffic is
Yeah, I mean,
coming from.
now that we're getting closer to a design that y'all have approved, I'm still hesitant. I mean, we can approach TxDOT now if we wanted to.
Right.
To see where on their plans they think that this type of sign would fit. We would certainly prefer not to have to purchase right-of-way.
Right.
Or to purchase private property, but rather keep it in their right-of-way, since they specifically have a program that allows for it in their right-of-way as long as we fit the certain
Right.
parameters.
Right.
So, and then there's no, to my knowledge, there's no cost for that, as long as we design it the way they want it,
Correct.
basically.
Right.
So, we would like to keep it in the right-of-way.
Okay.
The size of it would fit in the right of way. Leon Valley's is where where theirs is designed, as theirs is in the right of way as you come into Leon Valley. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I do know that the right-of-way width for Bandera Road outside 1604 is pretty
Too wide.
extensive.
Right.
That said, they are starting the process of designing the super street.
Right.
So I don't know
Yeah,
what
they-
they're gonna need for that.
They may have schematics already on that, at least have some idea that
Yep.
can give us some spots. Okay. Well, I don't think there's an actual motion on this. It was just gonna give direction and get everybody's input on it, so I think we're okay. We can just move past the item now. Do we have to have a,
She has her hand.
oh, sorry.
Hello?
Punch me in the
I don't
shoulder.
think we can drop the. I don't think so grammatically, we can drop that. But I think we can put that to Councilman Cynthia Liamasi for consensus, because that's a big deal. But I also like where the hill country begins. That's also excellent.
Okay, good input. I think once we have all the renditions, at some point, we are gonna have to make a vote and pick one, so that should be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to item number 12, discussion of an action on producing a 2020 Shop Helotes Fiesta Medal. All right, fun.
Something a little more lighthearted.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
like it.
move-
I love Fiesta Medals.
I move we discuss the Shop Helotes Fiesta
Okay.
Medal.
We have a motion for discussion on item number 12. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, awesome.
So I'm gonna pass out,
All in favor?
this is, I'm gonna just pass out the one
It's
we did
important.
last year. For those of you
Don't you? Thank you, sir.
who weren't here or didn't know we produced one.
Oh, how cute.
These are, yeah, they're,
It's adorable.
since I moved, I want to,
The event that they're held, where they have it downtown is really good, where they hand them out. It's a really good
Pin
thing.
Pandemonium, part of Fiesta, which
Yeah.
we do
Right.
set up a table down there to sell. That's where we sold actually quite a few. Typically, the one in front of you is the second year that Shop Helotes produced it. And do that a little more for the brand recognition of our, maybe our alter ego. We have a Facebook page and a website dedicated to Shop Helotes. And it's all about promoting Shop Local. So several, as some of you may know, there's hundreds and hundreds of medals produced every year. I got one from the San Antonio EDF, actually just last month, so this was 8 months late. But, so a lot of EDCs and other organizations do it, either for brand recognition or to raise money for nonprofits. The way I've handled it here in Helotes is we produced 500 medals, and I would set up at different businesses. This last year, we were able to set up at all the new restaurants. We were lucky enough to have like 9 new restaurants. Wanted to create, and it was only promoted through digital media, so mainly Facebook and on the website, to draw in new traffic. So if people came to the restaurant within the 2-hour period, they made a purchase, they got a Shop Helotes medal. So we've seen anywhere, I will admit, there's a couple of times you may only have 5 people come in. We've had several restaurants that said they saw a 35% increase in sales. A lot of people tried a restaurant. I had one guy even met me at KFC, and he's like, not like KFC's unique, but he said, because we did this last year, he went to Marco's. He said, I go to Marco's every Friday. He said, I never would have known that restaurant was there. So it's something that I think carries on a customer base. So it's a long process to design one and get it approved, and you got to have it by January, and that's honestly when the season, the craziness begins. We usually start handing them out at the end of February, March, and then April is, Fiesta. Cost, usually $3 to $4 a medal. All depends on the colors, detail, size, all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to look to the board because I would like to get something started soon to see if there was interest in doing this again for 2020.
Okay.
I totally agree.
All right. That was a good
I'm
discussion.
a Fiesta medal
Yeah,
hog,
me too.
and I support it totally.
Any other
It
discussion on
brings
it?
in a lot of
Is
people.
this a,
Motion,
And I guess it's a motion to get the process started. Are you gonna come up with designs that you're gonna present to us later, or do we get to vote on the actual designs, or is it just,
I haven't in the past. I've just done it.
okay?
She's laughing.
Maybe
I
our
would say
sign.
they usually turn out
Yeah.
pretty
they've-
desirable.
they've
I've
been-
made runner-up in the Business Journal for Best Medal by a nonprofit
Wow,
with this one, and the year before we did, your kids would know it, it's a Shopkins. It's another
yeah,
little
I
place.
know it, yeah, I've got that one, yeah.
So, yeah, no, I usually get a little more recognition. I have a few connections with Kins 5 and Fox, and they'll show it on their TV station. So,
That's awesome.
I mean, it added promotion to the area that's free.
Right. I think it's a great idea. Me personally, we use them at our business to generate business and just talk and buzz, so medals are a good way to get people to visit places they normally wouldn't. They will travel for them. It's crazy. Once you say
It
free
is crazy.
medals, they just show up. So I think it's a great idea to get people out to the businesses, and I think it's very well done. Represents the city well. So with that, I guess we just had our discussion is really, what is
The
the
budgetary-
action?
Just,
Do we need to set a budget for you?
yes,
What
Okay.
was the budget last year?
2,500,
How did that work for you?
no problem.
Okay. So, I will entertain a motion to set a budget for pursuit of Shop Helotes medals for 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve $2,500
I
for
second.
2020.
And we have a second?
second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Ayes have it, motion passes. All right, so last we have staff updates, and I don't think there's any action on this. Glenn, I guess you just give.
There's not, I don't know if you guys had a chance to review this. If not, I can go through it if you're up for it.
You're fast.
Can you do the highlights?
Yes, you're fast.
So what I included in this particular packet, since we did have a lot of new members, was the report that the EDC produces for city council.
Right,
So
the
this
work
is our
plan.
quarterly report. And this is the most recent that is more than likely, I think, going on the next city council agenda. And we break it out into each of the goals identified in our work plan. And then we try to put as much detail as we can, knowing that there's several things in the pipeline that we have to be very vague on. So I know Cooter Browns was something that we helped bring to the table. I know their first location received a denial, but they are still interested in moving to Helotes, and they're evaluating 2 other sites. So that there's still a possibility with that development. You can see under gateway signage, that's been a big one. We finally have, I think, pretty clear direction to move forward, and we'll be meeting with TxDOT then see where we can place the sign and if that requires any further change in signage dimensions, right? Goal 3, our external marketing, which we've gone kind of back and forth on how that's specifically defined. In this most recent plan, it's more for the development and real estate community. So what the EDC does to promote properties and opportunities within Helotes. I know one of the biggest things, you guys might even have the service, I don't know. Previously, we've worked with Menhard Consulting. They have a software program called Sidewalks that they can, I would say it's a quick and dirty site plan for a developer. They can put in parking, building, and everything and kind of figure out where your detention may be. And they also go through and give you a pro forma on-site development cost as far as grading and stuff, how much fill you're going to have to bring down and raise up. All the properties listed, we've done this service with Manhard. And 5 of the 8 properties are currently being developed. Now, I'm not saying we were the precipitous of all this, but it helps. Having a visual of these properties, what could be developed on it, and we always go for maximum development. Gives us marketing collateral. We post it on our website. We take it to all the conferences we attend. We send it out to brokers and other developers. In my opinion, it works very well. I do know Manhard recently closed their offices here in San Antonio, so we are looking, honestly, for another firm that has that capability, that reasonable cost. So, say Manhard, for us, we were paying anywhere from $750 to $1,500 a site. I mean, it was a very nominal expense. They did it for exposure as well.
Right, yeah, the idea is that if they see their name on the paper, that they may come
Right.
to them to do the actual.
So we don't go into it blindly. It makes,
Right.
So I did mention, some of the conferences we go to that we show these. International Council of Shopping Centers holds 2 we attend. One is in Fort Worth, last couple of years, and that's more of it's called the Red River. I don't like that. They changed it. They're incorporating Oklahoma now. It used to just be Texas. So it's all the brokers, developers, and businesses looking to build a presence in Texas. So it's a very good show. The other one we attend, part of ICSC, is the Recon, and that's in Las Vegas. To me, that one's best benefit. You meet some of the larger developers, but the hoteliers. There has been an interest in the past to try to get a hotel conference center here in Helotes, and that's the show where you meet them and you discuss deals and try to see if you can make something happen. And then Retail Live is a relatively new one that we've been attending in Austin, and that is like a speed dating audit. It's the easiest way to describe it. So instead of us setting up a booth, it's all the retailers are at a booth, and you just go down the line and introduce yourself and get contact information and follow up. Again, I mentioned we do have a Helotes EDC and a Shop Helotes website. The EDC's website is dedicated to promoting available properties, the demographic information, potential incentives we offer, where Shop Helotes is promoting existing businesses. I know Rick kind of mentioned one of the capital improvement projects. The EDC was involved on the water and sewer line extensions from Circle A all the way out to Scenic Loop. The first project, I know council has approved conceptually. I've talked with the landowner, Stan Goodson. He owns roughly, I'd have to look, I think it's a 4-acre lot next door to Jupy Mills. He's now hired a second architect and making some modifications, but they definitely planning to move forward with a 20,000 square foot strip center. It's already half pre-leased, so, I mean, there's a lot of interest.
I do have a question,
Go
Glenn,
ahead.
on this bond account number 14181, City of Helotes water credits balance. I'm taking it for the sewer line that y'all put in, or the water line you put in, that they actually gave you impact fee credits
Correct,
for what y'all paid, y'all's portion of what you paid.
correct.
So those impact fee credits are sitting in your account.
It is, and so the EDC paid for the engineering and the previous studies. The city is taking on the debt service for the construction of the water and sewer.
Okay.
So that bond balance is there to pay both of us back if that's, the desire of both entities.
Right.
Obviously, that can be used as an incentive as well.
Yes, yeah, so just to give y'all just what water credits are, so every time you apply for a water meter, SAWS collects what they call a water impact fee. It's usually around $3,500 to $4,500, depending on where you're at. And so by City of Helotes putting in this line, they actually got credits now in account that those can be assigned to anybody. So if you have a big user that's coming in, he says, oh, I'm gonna need a 2-inch water meter, that could actually equal out probably close to $100,000 in impact fee credits. You can actually assign them, say, hey, I wanna take some of my account and give it over to this entity for them to use as an incentive. It's almost like deferring impact fees for them. So that's a big amount of money that I think could be very useful in attracting people or using as an incentive without it actually being cash out. It's just credits sitting in an account, and they sit there forever. If you don't use them, they don't ever expire. So they're good things to have.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Then on goal 4, internal marketing, that's more marketing our area businesses. And exactly, Shop Helotes, Shop Helotes, Shop Helotes. That's our Shop Local program. We've got all the businesses listed in a directory on that site. They all have kind of a mini website within it with pictures of their the insides of their businesses. There's another program the EDC's done in the past through Google 360 Business Tours, where we have paid for all of our local businesses to have a tour done of their property. Partly, it's the cheapest incentive that we could do for a business. We're paying $150 to $300 per business for the service. It's half the cost of what the business would pay, since we're doing kind of in bulk. And then it increases their Google listing on a search. It gives us content, because the photographer takes still images along with the 360 tour that we use on Shop Helotes. And I want to say we've done approximately 65 businesses in Helotes to date. And we've done that since, I'd have to look, 2014 or 2015, I believe is when we started. Let's see. The Fiesta Medal we already talked about. Partnerships, we work with the SBDC. That's probably our main partner outside of the Helotes Chamber of Commerce. San Antonio EDF, they've tried to go to maybe a more regional approach. I would say that's at its infancy stage. We've met a couple of times to try to see how, because they're focusing on big fish, your Toyotas, your Medtronic, whatever. That's not something Helotes is focusing on. So we're trying to see how they can benefit us as well. I know the SBDC is a great resource for our area businesses, even prospects, with financial planning, business planning, and all those services. Those consultants can even meet out here in Helotes, either my property, or they like to meet at Jim's over coffee. I know goal 5 on here is a visitor center. That's kind of been identified as our long-term goal. We will be going over the work plan at least in January. If we want to do it sooner, we can. I know Rick mentioned this last plan was approved in May and June of 2019. So it's up to the board on when we want to reevaluate and adjust. So the lease space I am in, we have 1 more year on the current lease. We did a 3-year lease up front. The property owner was very generous on the lease rate, and we started out at $700 a month. This year we're at $800. Next year we're at $900 for almost 1,000 square feet.
Where is that at?
And it's the right now it's a brown strip center. It used to be blue. Right next door to City Hall. So we're next door to Pope's Cleaners.
Okay.
And then there was another goal on 6, Municipal Development District. That one's been a little bit more of a challenge. It's similar to a Type B corporation. It's just, it's another state entity, or state-allowed entity that allows a city to collect sales tax from the corporate city limits and its ETJ businesses. The MDD has less restrictions on how that money is spent. Other than that, it's really similar to a Type B organization, and Type B can only collect sales tax, Type A or B can only collect sales tax on corporate city limit businesses. The challenge, though, with this one is that VIA currently collects the sales tax in our ETJ, and those businesses are capped at 8.25. So in order for us to create an MDD and acquire the sales tax, VIA has to relinquish. And so far, they are unwilling to relinquish it and say they do not have a mechanism to do so. It would have to go out to a vote of all the, that part needs to be clarified. Is it just a vote of our ETJ? Is it their entire ETJ? It's going to require a lot more maneuvering and attorneys involved, honestly.
And the sole goal of the Municipal Development District is just to collect sales tax in the ETJ?
Correct.
Okay.
It would probably, looking at the list of businesses that are out there we received from the comptroller, it may close to double what we're currently collecting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Which I don't think I've ever seen a VIA bus out there ever, so.
No, actually, when we met with VIA, they offered putting a multimodal transportation hub out here. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna
Yeah. Really what we're
meet our
looking
needs
for.
and be utilized.
Can I
Go for it.
ask you on this one? You just said it, so they're taxing them at 8.25 right now? And
That's their, that's the total tax rate. 6.5 is the state. I'd have to go back and double check VIA's percentage. I don't, off the
so
top of my head, recall.
we get it, what would those, what would the tax rate to those who potentially vote on this, if this goes to a vote?
We just
Those
keep it the
people-
same.
Do you
It
know?
would probably be the same, because they currently they have, so they don't pay the city's portion of the sales tax in the ETJ, but they do pay for ESD and the medical, and I would just have to pull to see all the other districts that charge a
I
sales
think the
tax.
idea would be just take off the VIA tax and replace it
Put
with this
ours.
MDD tax. So,
They wouldn't see, more than
So-
likely, any net change.
You're right.
They wouldn't, but we get the, well, I mean,
Yes.
the frat,
Get
okay.
it instead of VIA.
It wouldn't be our rate in Helotes, is what I'm getting at?
The overall sales tax rate of 8.125, no, more than likely.
Okay.
But I'll look it up and let you know for sure. And then current commercial developments, let's see, where are we? Oh, yeah, the first one is behind the KFC in the Navy Federal Washtub area. We've been trying to get some groups interested in that site. I know the property owners lowered the price again, so it's becoming a lot more attractive. Initially, it was on the market for $2.4 million. No interest, they lowered down to 1.2, got a couple nibbles. I think we're getting a little bit lower because he just really wants to unload this one. I've got 2 brokers looking at that for some type of flex office development. I think that's the best use of this site. I know we've had several storage facilities interested, but that's not allowed here in Helotes.
Need more of those.
It's not suitable for retail.
It's not really suitable for that Cooter Browns either.
No.
I know that for the fact because where they're already located on Friday and Saturday, and I live up at the light in Cedar Springs, and then 11 houses up, and I can clearly hear their music at, on a nice, clear, calm night. So if they were like right behind there, yeah,
Free
I think
concert.
every one of those residents would probably be in Tom's office on the, it's-
Absolutely.
Are you sure it's not floors? Are you sure it's not floors you're hearing?
No, it's Cooter Browns.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get a great concert every Friday at 75.
The wind carries just right on floors, you can hear it
I can hear
good
it
ways.
all. I hear every concert.
The second site on here, the First Choice ER, which has been vacant for quite a while. There was one medical group that had an offer that didn't close, but now there's a second group that's actually looking at buying all 5 of the ER properties in Bear County. They have 45 days left on their due diligence, so fingers crossed. If they don't, there is a secondary offer on the site, so they're want to unload it. On the next page, you'll see the proposed 18,000 square foot judicial services. They are, it's a professional office building. They do document management for courts. And then the subsequent one was the Stan Goodson, the 20,000 square foot office retail center. He's proposing along our new water sewer line.
BB.
That's all I have.
Very good, all right. So that will complete staff updates. We don't have any discussion that we need to have on that unless anybody wants to discuss. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the last part of the agenda. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have to motion to adjourn? No, I can just adjourn.
Just do
I
it,
just
right
do
here.
it, all right.
Right here.
With that, we adjourn.
Adjourn.
It is now, wait, let me get the time. I didn't bring my watch. Now 8:48. This meeting of the EDC is now adjourned.